Let me get something out of the way from the start. This is not going to be a negative video about Tears of the Kingdom. I'm going to be discussing the controversy surrounding this game and talk about things I want to change from Breath of the Wild. I will be critiquing Breath of the Wild pretty hard, just know it's from a place of love and admiration for the series. I want to see the Zelda series keep evolving and getting better just like you guys do. And this video will cover what I think needs to be done for that to happen. So with that out of the way, there are a lot of Zelda videos on YouTube right now. Lately I've been seeing what's almost a war over Tears of the Kingdom. You've got one side calling it glorified DLC and saying the graphics aren't good enough, and then there's a lot of videos dismissing the criticism of Tears of the Kingdom entirely. I see a lot of points such as any criticism is just baseless speculation with no facts, and critics are blinded by nostalgia and can't let anything they love change. They'll call any criticism invalid for some reason or another, and call anyone who voices their concern or worries for the game a hater. And obviously I take a problem with both of these sides for a couple reasons. First of all, being critical of any media, especially modern games, is not synonymous with being a hater. Criticism is crucial if we actually want to make a difference in the current gaming landscape. Every month, another bland, uninteresting, uninspired AAA game gets released, but tons of people buy into it and call it the greatest thing ever. I mean, somehow Forspoken got good reviews from some people.
You serious?
And I know quality is subjective, but seriously, there's nothing wrong with liking something. But when it has objectively bad qualities, you should at least point them out so the industry can grow and get better. If games like Fallout 76 didn't get horrible reviews, how could we have any hope that Starfield or the next Elder Scrolls game would be good at all? Thinking Fallout 76 sucks doesn't make you a Bethesda hater, it just means you have a working brain and you want their next game to not be a broken mess on release. But back to Zelda. So let's get something out of the way. A lot of people use Breath of the Wild's quality as a sign that Tears of the Kingdom will be just as good. Since we all know that one game being good means the next one will be too, right?
No.
But Breath of the Wild is not a perfect game. It is arguably a masterpiece, and one of the best games Nintendo has ever made, but that still does not qualify it as a perfect game. I don't want to go too deep into my criticisms of the game, I can save that for another video, but I will name a few for context and just so my criticisms aren't considered baseless. Breath of the Wild has no real dungeons, and the Divine Beasts in no way compensate for this loss. I've already made a video on why Zelda needs dungeons, so I won't completely retread the same ground I've already covered, but it's still important to talk about here as they are one of my biggest complaints with the game. And it's just because dungeons are the most interesting part of the old Zelda games. They were integrated in the world's culture and they gave explanations of the history of Hyrule. I always loved the Shadow Temple in Ocarina of Time because of this. It was this temple used by the Sheikah to interrogate enemies of the royal family, but they were so brutal it became a dark stain on Hyrule's past. And then when you go in, there's blood all over the walls and there's torture equipment in the rooms. It's just so cool, and it makes the Divine Beast seem that much more lame in comparison. But even more important is how dungeons impact the gameplay. They give you a break from all the overworld exploration and they give you a tightly packed, well-designed puzzle box to solve, with a unique boss battle to top it all off. And just based off that description alone, it seems like the Divine Beast would work. But it's not the concept that fails, it's the execution. I always liked how open Breath of the Wild feels, but in practice it's not perfect. The problem with having such an open game is now none of the rest of it can be required. The developers can't design any area with the expectation that you have an item or ability from a previous one. So once you've done a puzzle in one area, you know about what to expect from the others. And they try to solve this problem by making the Divine Beasts puzzles in themselves, where you can control the body parts of the machine. You can rotate it, flip it upside down, and admittedly, these puzzles are really good. But everything revolves around touching your iPad onto 5 pedestals. That's lame. The puzzles do help make each one different from the others, but they overlook something. It's something minor, little thing that I'm not sure a lot of other people notice besides me. They all look the exact same. I'm not really sure if Nintendo meant for this to be the way that it is from the start, or if they just ran out of time, but it was a big mistake to use the exact same interior textures for all the Divine Beasts and all the shrines. I was sick of this aesthetic by the time I finished the first Divine Beasts, and I still had like 100 shrines left at that point. And then just to top it all off, there aren't even dungeon items this time, which is one of my favorite parts about the old games. There's just not a lot to find in Divine Beasts that satisfied the exploration. The sense of permanent progression you felt in the old games with Link getting more and more powerful is diminished here, other than health, stamina, and armor upgrades. What happened to gauntlets that let you pick up giant rocks 10 times your size? What happened to Link's magic? He used to be able to conjure a giant fireball to burn through anything in his path. Now he has some like shitty fire rod that breaks after 10 minutes. And that leads right into one of the most controversial aspects of this game, weapon durability. So this is probably going to come as a big surprise to all you guys, but I never really minded the weapon durability system.
You what?
It gave me a reason to use weapons that I never would have used if I could just use like one broadsword the whole time, and I just never really minded it all that much. But I will admit it's not balanced well enough, and I ended up avoiding most of the encounters in the late game besides the Lionels because the powerful weapons I had weren't going to be replaced by a Bokoblin. But we all know that weapon durability is returning in Tears of the Kingdom, so there's not a huge point to talk about it here. I just want to say that I hope they do balance it better, and from what we've seen, they are. Being able to fuse weapons together should take out the biggest complaint about it, which was enemies just not giving you really a reason to kill them. So now that we have this mechanic, it honestly should be fine. So now let's talk about the story. So anybody that played Breath of the Wild knows that the main aspect of that game was not the story. It was always more about the gameplay and exploration rather than telling an interesting narrative. But I'm going to be the one to come out and say that I thought the story was really lackluster. On my first playthrough, I thought it was fine, but the novelty of that wears off by the second playthrough, and I was really disappointed and left wanting more. I just don't want to see the only plot development through memories of Link's old life from 100 years ago, with characters that are already dead in the current time. The old champions were really interesting, but from the trailer, I thought they were going to play a much bigger role in the story, and I was disappointed when I saw what actually happened in the game. I do get why the champions were dead. It makes sense for the story, and that's not really what I'm the most mad about. If you're going to make them die, at least have them be the boss of the area. Instead of having some random blight, why couldn't the ghost of the champion get corrupted by malice after helping Link through the dungeon, and then you fight the corrupted form of them at the end? I feel like that just would have been so much more interesting. But that leads on to the bosses. Even though I didn't really care for all the other bosses, Calamity Ganon was admittedly an awesome final boss. He was like this spider, and he had all the abilities from the other bosses combined into one. His attacks were really hard to defend, and he was just really cool. And he was incredibly challenging if you didn't do the Divine Beasts or the Shrines. But like everything in this game, there's a caveat. If you did all those things, he gets half his health taken away with a laser beam at the start of the fight. And I know other Zelda games have given you powerful items to help you beat the final boss. I mean, in Majora's Mask, you get the Fierce Deity's Mask, which lets you just wail on the boss, and you have no challenge at all. But the difference is, that reward gives you the power. You're the one taking away his health, and it doesn't make the boss weaker. It brings the player up. And that's what's missing to me in this fight. You don't feel a sense of accomplishment from the champions taking away Ganon's health. It just feels like it's too easy. If they would have given you a super powerful weapon, or just increased the strength of your Master Sword, that would have felt really cool. But as it is, it's just not fitting to me. It makes the ending less fun. And there's no way to stop them doing this besides not doing the Divine Beasts. So if you want a good Ganon fight, you have to actively not do the story content, which I just don't think should be how it is. And even with that, I really wish I could say Calamity Ganon was the last boss in the game. But he's not. The real final boss is Dark Beast Ganon. And unlike Twilight Princess, he's not fun this time. It's really hard to even count Dark Beast Ganon as a boss. He couldn't hurt you even if you tried, and he's really only some extra spectacle at the end. The final shot of you shooting a light arrow at his head, it's pretty cool, but that's really the only memorable thing about that fight. And now it's time to talk about the side quests. They're alright. Nothing on the level of Majora's Mask or even Skyward Sword. And looking back, I really don't remember any of them besides Terrytown, which at least had some good romance going on, and you got to build up a town, which had really good shops in it for the late game, but it was basically a tree cutting simulator, so I don't really know how I feel about it. And let's just talk about something we can all agree on. The Korok seeds are bullshit. It may seem from that description that I hate this game and think it sucks, but that couldn't be further from the truth. I love Breath of the Wild. I've played it over 300 hours, and I promise I would not play a bad game, or even a good game that I didn't like, for that long. What I'm not gonna do though is blindly praise this game and refuse to recognize that it did something wrong, because there's no purpose for that. I want Zelda to keep evolving and getting better. I welcome the change to an open world. I actually fully embrace it, and I think it's the way to go moving forward. You hear that, Skyward Sword? You suck! I truly don't mind losing the old linear format, but not if that means we also have to lose everything that makes Zelda, well, Zelda. Because these are just special games to me, and they've been a huge part of my childhood. I know Tears of the Kingdom is going to be an amazing game. Nothing's going to change that, even if it doesn't fix anything that I disliked about Breath of the Wild. What they've shown us in the gameplay last week is all I need to know that they've done it. This game is going to be incredible. I just want it to be perfect. Which, I know that's a lot to ask out of a game company. I think the Zelda team is actually capable of it. I didn't really go into the purely negative things people are saying about Tears of the Kingdom because what I talked about is only stuff I want to see improved from Breath of the Wild. I think people that are calling Tears of the Kingdom DLC are ignorant and have no place in the discussion of this game. And to the people who criticize the graphics, are you really surprised this game doesn't look different? I want a more powerful Switch just as much as the next guy, but that's not the Zelda team's fault. And the game does look better than Breath of the Wild anyway. You can tell that the lighting and models look a little better, and we haven't even seen what all the locations look like from the old game. But that's all I really want to talk about from those kind of people. Tears of the Kingdom is gonna be an amazing game, and I cannot be more excited to play it. But what do you think? Are you excited for Tears of the Kingdom, or is there something I missed that you want changed from Breath of the Wild? Let me know in the comments down below, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.